It's a Friday edition here on Zero Block 30, and today we have 5 rounds of the magazine. Round number 1, would you fuck a robot?
Yes.
Round number 2, good, great, grand, wonderful. No yelling on the bus, even when the National Guard are the drivers like they are in Massachusetts. Round number 3, General Milley is back in the news again, and you got to think the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is fucking sick of being in the news. It might be, in my lifetime, the most chairman has ever been in the news. I don't remember hearing news about, like, Mullen was never in the news.
Yeah, I would say we all kind of knew who the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was just because of what we've done in our lives. But I think by and large, you go beyond my military history, I don't know who the hell that served in that capacity.
Chairman Mao got a lot of press his day.
Yeah. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mao, as they call them. Is it Milley or Miley? Did I say it wrong?
Milley, for the love of God.
God,
I'm like,
dude.
he's trolling me at this point.
Is it not Miley?
I don't know. Like, I've said it wrong so often. I have no idea.
Milley.
Milley.
Mill is the word mill.
So General Milley is back in the news. Round number 4. I got to sit down with you.
Kind of goofy though. If that's his
Cons, can I lead the show? Christ Almighty! Everybody's out of control. Out of control.
General Milfy.
Round number 4. I got to sit down with the author of the Pentagon Papers. We talked about everything from the withdrawal to the lack of accountability. And finally, round number 5, in an incredible turn of events, it turns out that you can actually potty train a cow, which I'm super excited about. It might change the course of human history if we can get those methane farts out of the way, which is exciting news. I had no idea that, I've seen these videos. Have you seen them floating around Twitter, Instagram, where cows are basically like just huge dogs? Like where if you get along with them well, like they'll come and sit in your lap and put their head in your lap and you could pet them and they're just adorable.
I went to this rescue farm in upstate New York one afternoon, just like on my own. I'm like, I'll go. And they let you walk around the pasture with these cows and they're so friendly. And did you know if a bunch of cows are in a pasture together, each cow picks a best buddy? They have the cows have battle buddies that they pick, and every day, like, that's their buddy cow that they
do. They switch, or is it
no?
The same?
It's like they pick their buddies. They have their battle buddy cow.
I like that.
Yeah,
nice.
I think it was about 3 years ago. There were so many videos going around that one of my buddies was like, "Dude, I'm not like a vegetarian, but I can't eat cows anymore." After seeing what they do and like how they are so friendly and just like they can be goofy and silly too, like having a good time. He's like, I can't do it anymore. And he's stuck to it. Like 3 years later, he'll eat like chicken and things like that. But he's like, I can't eat a cow after seeing that. I just can't do it.
I'm kind of in the same.
Don't show many videos of how they raise and slaughter chickens then, I guess.
Yeah.
But they're not as endearing as cows.
That's true. They're kind of just annoying, like pecking at them.
Yeah. I don't think you could ever like really get along with a chicken. Like you're not going to have a chicken pal, but I can see you having a cow pal.
Yes, you could definitely have a cow pal.
Except for that video while we're talking about farm animals, we posted on, if you don't follow Zero Block 30 on Instagram yet, what are you doing? We posted a video the other day. Did you see it? The farm animal rescues?
No.
There's this little chicken in the farmyard, and all of a sudden a hawk swoops down.
Oh, I did see that. Yes. I'm sorry.
And this chicken minding his own damn business.
Yeah.
This hawk swoops down out of nowhere. This other chicken comes, starts attacking the hawk to save his chicken buddy. And then a goat comes running onto the scene and also all the farm animals came and started beating up the hawk to save their chicken buddy. It was like a coordinated attack. It was wild.
And the chicken knew exactly what to do. As soon as the goat came and like rammed him off, that little chicken was like, shit, gotta get inside. Like,
get in that coop.
I don't want that thing to come back.
That was definitely one of the best tracks off of Adam Sandler. What the hell happened to me? The goat.
Yeah.
One of my friends here, she has a like a homestead situation, and every day for the last couple of weeks, she's gone outside and one of her chickens is dead, and they think it's a coyote that's coming in. She's like, she has like construction business, and she will try to like build it where they can't get in. These predators, they'll find a way, man. They will find a way.
They become like liquid, man. Though, like how cats can slide right through the seam in your wall, you know, they're just,
and it's sad once you like, they go out there to get your eggs in the morning and next thing you know, you got dead chickens all around.
Yeah, not great.
Okay.
Not great at all. That's why you need a little bit of Simply Safe so you can keep an eye in your backyard. Because right now they have introduced the best home security of 2021 that includes a 140-degree field view. So you can watch over everything in your yard, to include a chicken coop if it's in there. It's got 1080p HD resolution with 8x zoom. That means you could zoom in and see those little coyotes trying to get your beloved chicken. It has a built-in spotlight with colored night vision goggles, so you can keep an eye on what's going on day and night. It's super simple to set up and usually just takes minutes. And it's easy to remove a rechargeable battery, so it doesn't need an outlet. You can go anywhere in your property. The camera has it all. It integrates with Simply Safe home security system, extending the protection to the outside. Together, it means every door, window, and room are protected. And now your property will be too. And in fact, I have it at my house. And I told you guys that I have it like that's on the pool house. Guess what? It picked up at like 2:00 in the morning the other day.
Skinny dippers.
You forgetting to turn the hose off.
No, luckily I got something for that too, but it was a skunk that was back there.
Oh.
And I got a little alert and I looked at it in the morning and I saw it and I went on there and I saw the little skunk skittering across it was skittering across the pool deck. And I was like, oh man, I got to go out there and make a bunch of noise so Gus doesn't get sprayed. Because finally, after like a year and a half after he got sprayed, he finally doesn't smell like skunk at all anymore. And wouldn't it be my luck, right away he gets sprayed in the face again. You don't want that to happen with your puppy. So make sure you go to simplysafe.com/ZBT. You're going to get 20% off your new system in the first month of monitoring for free when you enroll in interactive monitoring. Again, that's simplysafe.com/ZBT. Lots of stuff going on today. Kate is in the office. Con's in the office. We're not actually doing a full out
studio
Zoom. Studio show, which
here we are.
Yeah, Nick, our producer Nick was here too, setting us up. So
speaking of chaps, gosh, I gotta tell you, it's like night and day with what's going on in your studio set up there. It's just, it really looks sharp now with all the little knickknacks, paddywhacks, and the wallpaper and what have you, and your hero, General or Colonel Jessup there over your shoulder. Gosh, it looks fantastic.
Thank you very much, my friend. And speaking of work stuff, I just signed a 4-year contract extension with Barstool. So I'm stoked about that. At the end of this
4 more years. 4 more years.
I think at the end of this contract, I will be at Barstool longer than I was in the Marine Corps, which is wild.
Wow. Holy shit.
Yeah,
that's
so
fine,
it's crazy.
Man.
This will be my longest career, which is, I never thought that was going to happen when I first got a text from Dave saying that he was interested in hiring me. And I thought it was just going to be to blog like 4 times a month or something. And it turns out it was much different.
Oh yeah.
It's gone a lot better. Kate's in there too. She's doing stuff. She's getting in. Kate's going to be all in on a mommy blog, right? Doing mommy blog stuff.
Oh, really?
I have them doing the branding for the logo right now. It's going to be called High Chair. Get it? Because the Barstool, it's you know, it's funny.
Yes,
it's cute and funny because I have to explain it.
Yes,
see, because of a Barstool, and a kid's version of a Barstool is a high chair. So it'll be a Barstool with the stars.
So is this
and then it gets older, you can do the booster seat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Barstool booster. But yeah, I'm going head first into the mommy blog thing, but it's gonna be my way. It's going to be my way, which means it'll be awkward.
You and Sinatra.
But I just have so much to say about it. And I've been keeping it off the blog and like sort of off my social media, especially off my Twitter and stuff. Cause I'm like, I don't know. Do I want to include my son and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I do, damn it. He's my favorite thing on the planet. And he's all I want to talk about.
It's tough to hear because I'm sitting right here.
I know. Sorry. You're a close 10th.
Thank you.
But yeah, so look out for that. That should be coming out sometime next week. I'm going to start doing stuff with that. Guys, I'm working on some kids' books and stuff like that.
Yeah, you read us a little excerpt from something, which, you know, hopefully that materializes into what you want it to be. It sounds interesting so far.
I have a vision. So we'll see. Who knows?
Cool.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of stories that are floating around in the military escape today. Kate, you were, if you want to start a little pre-show, you were pretty triggered in the old group text because you've been following along. And I think once you have kids, you pay so much more attention to kid related news, which is normal. I mean, like if you don't have a truck or if you never worked on carpentry, why the fuck would you be reading carpentry blogs or truck blogs or anything like that? Yeah. Now that you have a kid, you're paying a lot more attention. And you discovered the military is still treating parents like garbage.
Yeah, holy shit. And especially, I mean, I'm sure it's tough for men too, but like especially women in the military still. So I'm in all these different military women Facebook pages. And there was this post that came up, and this is what it says. And the photo is everybody's in their camo pants, and what do you call it? Fucking boots and utes. Stolen valor, Katie. They're in boots and utes. These Marines are in boots and utes with their glow belts on, and they're in formation. Pants. And in the back of formation is a Marine, and she's got her infant. It's an infant carrier, so she's got her infant outside next to her. Okay, and it's an overcast day. It looks even a little rainy out, and this is what it says: conducted a combat fitness test on the Marines this morning at 05:30. If you look in the back, you can see a young Marine and her baby after finishing her 880-yard sprint. She is a single mom and the babysitter wasn't available at the last minute. So instead of this Marine making excuses about her situation and not showing up, she chose to demonstrate why you never underestimate the resolve of a Marine. Plus, baby Liam got to see his mommy crush her fitness test. And immediately, all the women in the group, people might see that and be like, wow, that's cool. Good for her. Immediately, all the women in this group was picked up on it right away. This is not cool. This is so incredibly toxic and disgusting. Right. And she commented on it. She's like, this is actually toxic as fuck. How do I know? Because that was me. And then everyone's saying, you know, all these stories started coming out behind it that of course I sent to you guys too. But the comments that other women were saying, oh yeah, we had McMap at 4:30 in the morning. So I had to wake up my infant every day at like 3:30 to get ready and bring her with me. And other women saying my command expected me to bring my pack and play into headquarters and leave my baby with a stranger in the unit. Fuck no. I don't even feel comfortable leaving my baby with relatives right now. And I'm at 6 months. Like, fuck no.
Yeah. I don't understand how.
What the fuck?
You have to have a better plan in place, because also this is not the first person in the Marines to have a child.
And especially if you're a single parent in the Marines, odds are very high you have no family or friends around. Right. You are very far away from home. You have no support system. And to have to bring your baby out in the cold, out in the rain. Other women were saying they had to leave their babies out and like, oh, the dirt watched mine. They said, you know, other women running the PFTs with strollers.
Yeah, I've done a battalion run with a stroller too, because I was a single dad when I was in. And it is an absolute nightmare.
Failure and I think of leadership. Complete failure of leadership.
I agree. I think a lot of it has to do with the old we did it so you have to do it type of thing, and that's just the way it's been.
Archaic.
My blood's boiling thinking about it.
And there's no reason to do it. Like, why can't you do McMap at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 or 8? There's no reason that you can't do that. I mean, you don't have to be there at 5. These units that still do the 5 o'clock PT, it's just because that's the way that you've always done it. There's nothing wrong. I mean, the Air Force is so much better than the Marines and Army are at this type of stuff. They typically don't have unit PT, and if they'll have unit PT, but they'll do it at like 8 o'clock. Well, they'll all get together and they'll do it whenever people can actually drop their kids off. Who wants it? Why do you have to have an extension of your day? Your normal working day, 7:30 or 8 o'clock to 1700. Why the fuck can't you do PT during that time?
And if it does have to be early, if you're any kind of leader anywhere in that unit, you say to her, listen, I'll set up the course another time during the day when your child is at daycare, when your child is safe, whenever, and we will do it at a time that works for you. I understand what you're going through. Like, what the fuck? I can't imagine. There were so many horror stories from women in this thread that I felt physically, I'm getting angry talking about it again. And it's 2021 and this is still happening. And one of the things that sucked to read the most was so many women saying, well, either way we lose. If we don't show up, we're considered, oh, she's just skipping out on work. She's like lazy. She's this, she's that. If we don't show up, we get shamed. If we show up, we get shamed. We get the guys going, oh, great. There's a fucking baby here. This is the Marine Corps, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's no winning. It's insane. That's insane to me that in this point in time, the Marine Corps still can't get their shit together with this stuff.
And there's no reason to do it. You can have PT at any time of day. Like it doesn't even have to be like a special consideration. It should be, this is what's normal. This is what we do. Yeah. We're not bending because Lance Corporal Mannion has a baby. We're bending because this is the right thing to do. And probably 20% of the unit has children. And it just makes a lot more sense for a work-life balance. You can't talk about work-life balance and be like, you got to get your fucking baby up at 3 o'clock. Cause I had to do that. Yeah. Like when I would go to the range, I had to do that. If I had a bomb sweep in the middle of the night, I would have to pick up Kelsey, walk her next door. Luckily, one of my friends lived next door, put her on the couch before she would get there, and then hustle back so I could go all the way back out in town, get her, put her in daycare, come back the next day, and then feed her McDonald's again at 1800 because it was the end of the day.
And how much anxiety did that cause you? That had to be such an awful feeling.
Just never feel like you're doing the right thing anywhere.
Yeah.
Like you feel like a shitty parent because nobody wants to look at their baby that Kelsey was three years old at the time. But even before that, when she was like 10 weeks old, I had to go feed the dogs in Okinawa, 20 working dogs, pushing a stroller with different types of pans and things underneath where all the dogs are barking and she's crying. As a parent, you don't want to look at your kid and be like, I'm waking my kid up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I know this is not good for their brain and their development. But as a Marine, I have to do everything that I possibly can because this is my job and I want to succeed so that I could take care of the little one that I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's an incredible balance that is impossible to really discover where the scales meet. You just can't do it.
And not to mention, when you're in garrison, what are you really doing? I mean, aside if you're going to a range or if you're going to the field to go to do something, what are you really doing throughout the entirety of that day that you shouldn't just bake PT into that part of the day? What is saying that, guys, we got to get this knocked out before 08. We got to be starting at 06 because we can't have this run into our day. Why?
If you don't,
you want to talk about a unit that would like you if you were a leader. If you were a battalion commander and you came in and like, look, we're not doing any battalion runs before 08. And I don't want to see any staff NCOs, any junior officers coming out here and saying 15 minutes prior to 15 prior. You will be here at 7:50. We're going to step off and run at 08. Everybody has the opportunity to go get because base daycare opens up at 6:30. Like as soon as you do that and you establish yourself that you're going to be looking out for everybody, people in the unit like you so much more. And if you're willing to fight for your people are going to be willing to fight for you and go the extra mile too.
And you're a fucking liar if you say your unit. One of my biggest memories of time in the Marine Corps is every single day trying to look busy for at least 3 hours.
Yes.
We had like nothing to do. It's the truth.
Because I mean,
especially after 1300, you're just like, oh, well, I guess we'll just fucking walk around and pick up trash, cigarette butts.
Right. Because think about like, what does the military exist to do? We exist to defend the country. Well, if you're not trained to defend the country, if you're not training, I don't know how, like, I'm thinking back to it right now. And obviously, officers and enlisted do different things throughout the day, but I'm thinking back to it. I don't really remember what I was doing during the middle of the day when I was in garrison as a platoon leader. Honestly, I don't remember what I did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, luckily for me, I was a dog handler. So we had like specific things that you had to do every day, but there's no reason why you couldn't do that later. Like you could do it later or at a different time of the day. You just have to be worth your salt as developing a plan, a training plan. And you could do that and you could fit everything that you possibly need. And it's just, to me, it's a no-brainer to be better to your people. That's the reason why people don't, why in the fuck, if you are a single parent, why would you re-enlist?
She commented, she's like, I loved the Marine Corps. I ended up getting out because I couldn't. And a lot of other women said the same. And I think the Marine Corps is always undervalued and I won't get too into it, but women, I could go on and on forever. But me, yes, I could. But how many incredibly talented women who would have done amazing things for the Marine Corps ended up getting out because bullshit like this. Mm-hmm. The one other thing I saw, the common thing in the thread, was women saying, my kid couldn't go to the daycare, wouldn't accept my child because my child was sick. And my command then made me bring my sick child into work. Mm-hmm. Fuck. What the fuck are these commands doing? If you are listening to this and you're an up and coming leader, I get messages from people who are in ROTC and colleges and blah, blah, blah. You are a good leader if you take care of this stuff. Mm-hmm. You are a garbage shit leader if you don't.
Yeah. And don't make it singling out the single parent. Like do it for everybody. This is the way it should be for everybody. Because nobody wants to get up at 4 and go do McMap. It's just fucking dumb.
I mean, everywhere else in the country, if you have a sick child, well then, all right, I need to take a sick day from work today because I got to take care of my child. Why is it in the military that taking a sick day requires an act of Congress, right? You need to go to sick call and get a doctor's note to prove that you're sick.
And then bring it in when rest is what you need.
Right, exactly. It's just so archaic that why wouldn't we just examine the way we operate and say, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't do that like that anymore. Yeah. Maybe we should listen to our people and actually take care of them. Now, I'm not saying
just employ a little common sense.
Right. Yeah.
No.
You can't let it get to the point where, anybody can just take a sick day willy-nilly because then next thing you know, nobody's coming to work. People, once you give soldiers and Marines an inch, they're going to take a mile. But, if you have a child who's sick, you should be able to take a sick day. Yeah. Because again, it goes back to what I was saying. What are you actually doing in garrison that day that requires your presence more than above anything else. Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. You're definitely not fucking robots like we're going to talk about in round number 1. I'm excited about this because we talked a little bit about the squirrels and how they're looking at different squirrels for robotics on the last episode. And this one kind of goes into that a little bit because recently Boston Dynamics released a video of dancing robots and it looked more like Pixar animation than real footage. But they also have the 9 things because they wanted to ask folks what they actually would trust AI, because there's all kinds of conversations based on what Elon Musk is doing, what McDonald's and different fast food chains are doing, where you have all of this artificial intelligence that it's replacing a lot of the manual labor type of jobs or logistics
and AI,
right? Ethics questions too. So they asked 1,200 people. This group asked 1,200 people about AI, and some of the 9 shocking AI stats that came out are pretty unbelievable. The first one, nearly 69.
Nice.
There you go. 69% of college graduates believe that AI could take their job or make it irrelevant in a few years. People with graduate degrees are the ones most afraid of losing their jobs due to artificial intelligence development. That is surprising to me that it's the more advanced degree folks that are worried. Like I would think it would be like if you're a bricklayer, like they could build a robot that lays perfectly level bricks every time.
This is
probably better than
this makes perfect sense. This isn't saying they're the ones losing their jobs. This is saying graduate degree people are the ones most worried about losing their jobs. They're not the ones losing their jobs.
Wait, isn't that the same thing?
No, she's mocking them for being worried when they shouldn't be worried. It should be
their little
blue collar
monocles
workers
are shaking. Yeah, it's the blue collar workers.
I mean, because realistically, if you have the opportunity, there's certain things that you need a blue collar worker to do that you would feel embarrassed if they come to your house, like a plumber. Like if you have a really clogged toilet that's overflowing with your shit because you shit so huge and you get to pick on the plumber hotline, real person comes in or a robot comes in, you're picking robot 10 times out of 10.
Unless you got a hot plumber.
Unless you get guaranteed that the turbo team is going to come in, then maybe you go with the turbo team. But there's so many other things that like cashiers, drivers, translators, those jobs are definitely going to be AI. Like I think Uber eventually, if you can get the cars like Tesla and you can get that going well, why in the world would you be a taxi driver if you can have somebody that you don't talk to, that you can adjust everything, they're not going to get on your nerves?
I'm going to tell you right now, self-driving cars, though, those would be the most annoying cars to drive in because they're going to
follow the rules.
They're going to follow every single rule of the road.
Boring.
I mean, listen, you need to go a little bit over the speed limit. You need to be switching lanes when you
going 70 on the interstate would be a nightmare.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't like the idea of self-driving cars. Those would stink out loud.
I looked up what jobs are actually being replaced right now more than any others. Yes. And these are some of the top ones. Assembly line and factory workers, of course. Makes sense. You see those some where robots are building the cars.
That's freaky.
Bus drivers, taxi drivers, and truck drivers.
No.
Phone operators, telemarketers, and receptionists. I had a problem with Amazon the other day, and it was a robot I was writing with on my laptop, and they solved the problem for me.
You strike me maybe somebody is sometimes like you might get bored and just like reach out to customer service robots just to have somebody to talk to.
Hey, robot, Kate again. Bank.
I mean, isn't that movie Her? That's essentially what Her.
I have that in here at the bottom. I was going to talk about that. Even at the VA, the pharmacies now, it's a machine that some of them have these machines where you go, you boop boop boop, you put your info in, and your pill bottle comes out. Packing, storeroom, and warehouse moving. Those images from the giant Amazon warehouses where it's this massive, quiet, enormous room with just robots quietly pushing and pulling little carts full of stuff everywhere. No people anywhere in this warehouse, thousands of items moving all around. It's crazy. But yeah, so those are some of the biggest ones.
And bank tellers and things like that they can count money so much more quickly and they can just get it out and do it exactly right. But 45% of the people have a positive attitude towards AI taking control of the economy. And some claim that it would prevent corruption and improve the economy. I could see how it could, and like corruption, because they're not trying to skim off the top or anything like that.
But then whoever's designing it
Right. Like
They
the same
would be
thing
the
with
ones
Fight Club,
trying
where
to-
you take like a fraction of a penny and next thing you know, you have millions and billions of dollars,
Mhm.
which can definitely happen. 60% of respondents said that they would use a self-driving taxi during heavy traffic. My wife says that the moment that there is a good self-driving car that's reliable and it's not going to blow up while you're inside it, that she's going to get it. Like immediately. She's like, I'm going to sit in the back seat with my book or my laptop and do my work like whenever I'm riding around, and I won't have any wasted time. Like if you are doing commute to work and you have a business where you have to be in, like Dave or Erica, for example, where they're constantly busy taking meetings, Erica having to go in and do like drive herself and be on the phone, it would be so much easier to not have to pay a chauffeur, not have to pay somebody that salary, and you're going to get to work on time and you get to do some of your work while you're there. Like that's invaluable.
Yeah. My mom actually said that just this past week. She said she would love after a day at work, because she has about an hour commute home, maybe a little bit less, if she could just sit in the back seat and not have to worry about driving.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
That's what I every day when I get on the train, because I'm lucky that I love going to work. It feels like a treat coming in here. I fucking love getting on the train. It's a double decker. I always go to the top deck, and I feel like
you do. Like almost every day, you take pictures on your Instagram story, like, oh, it's a beaut. Look at this.
Well, part of the beauty
the
is
swamp
that
of New Jersey.
I don't have to drive. I walk 10 feet to the train station from my apartment. I hop on a train, and then I'm on my fucking phone TikTok, and all of a sudden I'm at work. It's a
That's
delight.
when we know Katie's commuting, when she's super responsive on text, is when you sit on the train.
Absolutely. I fucking love it, man.
Yeah.
Yes, I get that. I get looking forward to that.
And they say that people are 7 times more likely to be negative, that will have a negative impact on their job market than fair treatment of robots. According to 32% of our survey respondents say that robots' rights is a topic that we shouldn't worry about.
What?
I never even thought about the ethical treatment of robots because they don't have souls. Right. So who cares? Like, why would you care about how a robot feels? Like, what does that even mean?
That's outthinking the room right there. That's just silliness.
Yeah.
78% believe that they're going to be used to give misinformation. That already
happening.
With like, I mean, that's like probably a third of Twitter and Instagram is fake accounts, essentially. Men are twice as likely as women to put their trust in artificial intelligence. Men place significantly more trust in AI technology than women. They're about twice as likely to have an AI robot operate on them or teach them their children. My old neighbor at my old house, not the guy that I hated that I built the wall for, but the other dude, he actually was a surgical technician, but he owned, like, it was just computers. Like he would do things and like say, he would type into the computer, we're taking out the appendix now. And the computer robot arm would go in, locate the appendix, and it was able to do all the surgical prep work for the doctor. And like, if the doctor was like, pull back the skin, the little things go in and they pull back the skin for it perfectly, where it's not going to mess up at all, completely steady. And it has just like, there's no shaking or anything like sneezing. That. Yeah. They would pinpoint on like they had like almost like an iPad type of thing, and they take their little pin and put it on an artery, and it would be like, cauterize this artery, and it would go in exactly where it was and cauterize it perfectly every single time. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, and
I didn't know that existed.
Like a small hospital here, so they have to be doing it in New York and Chicago.
I didn't realize that was actually going on in modern medicine. I'm not surprised, but it's also, I think that's a little scary, because I do think that's one of those professions where I do want somebody's expertise and experience to play a factor.
Like pilots.
Yes, a pilot as well.
Yeah.
Going back to the AI, drivers, that's the same thing. Is if you program it to do a certain way and not think, if anything were to be introduced that is outside the norm, something could be catastrophic and go wrong.
Yeah. I think too, like the self-driving cars and these operating stuff. I listened to this hacker podcast, and this guy hacked into the, what do you call the vents in a building?
The air conditioning?
Air conditioning.
Yeah, but HVAC.
HVAC.
The guy hacked into the HVAC controls for a hospital and was able to change. Well, medicine is depends on temperature.
Yes.
Patients depend on temperature, blah, blah, blah.
The oxygen tanks, all that shit.
What if you could hack into, there's like 50 million cars on the highway, and you hack them and you make them all go off? I don't know. This is tinfoil.
Well, we recently saw that with the pipeline that was in South Carolina, where the Russian hackers went in and disabled it, and it caused gas outages essentially for a week and a half, 2 weeks on the East Coast recently. And that's the reason why gas prices went up, because they had to shut down production completely.
Well, I think I maybe am making this up, but I saw concerns, people with like pacemakers and stuff, that there's concerns that like a hacker could hack into that and turn your heart off, kind of thing, like crazy shit like that.
Well, and speaking of baby Kate, like there's videos that used to make me fucking feel sick when you would have like some pervert hacking into the baby monitors and talking to the babies.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And like seeing them, what they're doing. We talked about it on Podfathers one time and it gave me the fucking creeps.
I specifically got the lowest. There's like all these super tech baby monitors. I got one that is not high tech just because I was afraid of somebody doing that. Same with my sound machine. There's a sound machine that most parents are buying now. It's like the top one, but the comments are like, people can hack and listen to your baby's room and like blah, blah, blah. So I got the most low tech baby shit for my baby because I was like, no, I don't want any of that fucking shit happening.
That's weird.
Also, I feel like men trust these robots to do shit like raising their kids more than women because they're lazy.
Yeah, I think if you asked me whenever I was a single dad, can I get the robot from the Jetsons? Oh, I'm doing that 1,000 times out of 1,000. Like I would definitely do that. 20% of males said that they're more likely to interact with AI robots. I can definitely see this. And this is the reason why I want to talk about it, because it turns out that in America, 58% of people are absolute liars, because only 42% of people said that they would have sex with a humanoid robot. About 42% of the survey respondents said they would have sexual intercourse with a robot, and 39% believe that they could have a romantic relationship. I don't think I could have a romantic relationship, but if it's a hottie boom body robot, buddy, I mean, what are we doing here? Like, are we just going to lie and say that we're not going to do that? Like if you had, let's say, the hottest person to you, like if you had the 1990s version of Cindy Crawford robot, and you could just bring it home, pay a couple grand for it, and you could bring it out and hump it every now and then, I think everybody's doing that.
Well, let me tell you, they're not quite robots, but they're incredibly realistic sex dolls, that are human sized. And, there's men paying tons of money. Sex doll brothels are opening up. There's one in Vegas. There's one in Oklahoma. Almost every city in the US has at least one sex doll brothel. I'm not kidding. They're all over Europe. They're all over whatever. You go in and you have sex with the sex doll instead. And
what do they have, like huge human size, like dishwashers that they put them in after?
Yeah, as opposed to having your own and paying for your own.
I have no idea who does the cleanup of those things.
I mean, because that would be, you have to get like the hose out and spray it up in there. That'd be gross.
That being said, here's 23-year-old Kate's list of the top 5 hottest robots.
Okay.
Number 5, all of the movie The Stepford Wives.
Yes.
The 1975 version. Okay. Those lady robots are hot patoots. Number 4.
They were
very, very recent reference by Kate.
Thank you. Number 4, the Austin Powers fembots.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they could get it. Boys, those were all based off of who? Elizabeth Hurley, right?
No, because they were all blonde.
But they're all gorgeous. They're all like, I remember watching that movie in like middle school with all my school buddies, and like getting to that part, and I'm like, oh, the guys are getting real quiet in here. What's this is a silly movie. K, or as you may know him, serial number KD63.7, aka Joe, aka Ryan Gosling in Blade Runner. Wood.
I don't think I've seen Blade Runner.
Neither have I.
Me neither, but I Googled hottest robots and I image, and I was like, yes, look into this. Number 2, Bender from Futurama. What can I say? I love a funny guy.
Okay.
Funny guy.
Sure.
Number 1, the JFK robot at Disney's Hall of Presidents.
Oh yeah, he could definitely get it. I recently went to Disney like 2 years ago and went in there. Almost all the presidents are good looking, and even Trump looks svelte in there, and his hair looks fantastic. Like if you've ever wanted to fuck a Trump, that's the one to do. The Hall of Presidents, Disney.
Hall of Presidents.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Never been to Disney. There's I would say 63% chance I never go to Disney World.
I feel like there was a 1% twist in the genes that you're such a degree close to being a Disney adult.
Yeah.
That I can't believe you're not, but I'm glad you're not.
I could see it happening though when he has kids. Like it's easy to say
that's the only thing. Yeah, because Alex loved Disney growing up, and she's like,
I would never go. No, like by myself, I would never go. But bringing your kids there, and some of the spots that you can eat, fucking good too. Like there is stuff for adults
at downtown Disney with a cigar, being like, all right, I can see it for sure.
All right, so I mean that's why I didn't say it was 100%. I said 63% that I don't go. So who knows? Maybe that 37% really kicks into high gear once I have some kids.
But I could also see cons being a huge theme park guy in general, like just having a great time. Like
Let
you
me
are a
tell
theme
you.
park guy.
Dude, growing up, going to Great Adventure. My goodness,
We
that
rode
place.
the slingshot together.
Yeah, we rode the slingshot down in
he's a hoot.
Daytona.
Yes.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
you would love Disney. Like I think you and Alice would have fun now without kids.
I don't think they have, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they got the real deal Holyfield when it comes to roller coasters.
Oh, yes, they do.
Oh no, they do, my
Oh my
friend.
God, they
Really?
do.
Oh yeah, some of the Avatar rides, there's like 3-hour wait for them bad boys when you go.
Roller coaster in the dark.
All right. Well,
Steven Tyler.
There is some of it's creepy, like It's a Small World, like those little things. And there's, I'll be honest, there's a lot of it that's just overtly racist. Like, there's just a lot of racist rides at Disney.
Working on it.
Yeah, they're working on it. They're trying to fix it, but I don't think that they ever will, because it's just everywhere. Like the images are everywhere. It's hard to get rid of Peter Pan images from the 60s and 70s without getting rid of Peter Pan.
Boy,
Right.
watch that again recently. My God, you're right. Watching shit again, you're like, oh my God.
Yes.
Mhm.
Anyway.
Yep. And that's basically why I wanted to talk about fucking robots, because I think it would be a good time and everybody would do it. I want more AI stuff. The more AI stuff I can get, I love that kind of technology. My house is like all done up in all the smart shit. I love all that stuff.
Pat has an auto blow.
I'm sorry.
It's a blowjob robot. He doesn't use it. He doesn't use it. As far as I know, somebody sent it to him.
It's just in a different location every day. He just moves it around.
But it's an auto, and it literally, have you seen one?
No.
Oh my God. You got to look up auto blow. It's literally like this little.
Is it kind of like that tube at the bank where you put in your thing and it sucks it up?
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's that hard to figure out what an auto blow does.
Right.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's move on to round number 2, because the folks in the National Guard, I think since we've been doing this show, this is the most that the National Guard folks are getting abused and
they're running out
recalled on everything.
Yeah.
I was DMing with a woman who's in the National Guard. Her husband's in the National Guard as well. He's been down at the border for like 6 months or 9 months or something like that. They've been married for 2 years and they've only been together for about a month of that. And they're going to have a baby and have all that stuff going on, but they keep getting recalled and recalled and recalled. And I know it's against the law, the federal law, to deny somebody a job or to fire somebody whenever they are in the Guard and they're activated. But there's things that happen that are shady. Like you get passed up, you're not going to get the promotion that you normally would if you're constantly gone. Like if you have a civilian job and you're working as a sales manager, there's no shot you get the job as a VP if you've been gone for 6 of the last 8 months. Like you're just not going to get that promotion.
Right. It makes a difference for sure.
Yeah. So they're doing it again. And I think they're calling folks up in the National Guard in ways and for things that make zero sense.
By the way, this story you're reading, I went to put this same story on the sheet, but because it's happening in Philadelphia as well.
Oh, really? Multiple spots. Yeah. And governors are like that too. They'll see one governor that's using something for the National Guard and be like, well, I'm the commander in chief of this National Guard. I'm going to do it too. Like whether it be riot controls, which makes sense. Like if you have things like that to call it the National Guard, but there's been so many natural disasters that have happened that like Louisiana, Texas, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, all of those folks are constantly getting recalled. People are going from South Dakota down to Texas and getting paid for by a private donor. None of it makes sense. But this story here comes from Massachusetts, and it's because the National Guard is helping bus students to school districts across the county because they are struggling to hire enough drivers. The Republican governor, Charlie Baker, said that 250 Guard personnel will be available to serve as drivers of school transport vans. Now, my question there is, do they get paid like bus drivers or do they get paid by National Guard? And they should be able to opt into whatever one is higher.
Oh, all right. That's interesting. That's interesting. I never thought about that, but I think if you opt into whichever is higher, then you open a can of worms that would cause a lot of problems. But the fact that they're
both paid for by the state, though.
That's a fair point. Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
You make a good point, chaps.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting that they're getting really fast and loose in how they're using the National Guard. Yeah. I've never heard of National Guard being used as bus drivers.
Hey, we need 200.
I thought it was, honestly, I thought it was duffel ball that like they got recalled to be bus drivers. I mean, and can you imagine having fucking specialist Smuckatelli driving your kids to school?
That's not safe. That's not safe
Well, they're
even a
gonna
little
train
bit.
them. They're going to be giving them.
Well, they
training.
already are trained. They're using like the motor T folks. So they have the training to do it. They're not?
Nope. They have to complete vehicle training like any school transportation worker and will be operating transport vans known as 7D vehicles, not the big long school buses, but they start training this Tuesday.
I really need to know what training entails.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Because
hopefully it's like a emergency vehicle operator course where they're doing like super fast slaloms and they have to do like sliding stops. Those are my funnest. Did you ever get to do one, Kate? Emergency vehicle operators course?
Oh,
No.
yeah. Well,
I did the one at the DEA Academy, and it was the most fun training I've ever done by far.
Tell me about it, because it sounds like it'd be fun.
You get in the cop car and they're like, all right, fucking take it up to 45, but backwards, and then just hit the brakes and spin the wheel. And you're like, I'm like 19 years
All that like Jason Bourne type driving and shit. That's what you learn how to do essentially.
Awesome.
Like
Yeah.
the DEA Academy one, you weren't allowed to be done. Like you didn't pass the course unless you popped your tires on a turn. Like you had to be going so fast that the tires popped, and it had like a roll bar on the side. So you knew how fast you could be going. It was like the time where you see like Jason Bourne's out in this little Mini Cooper and they're doing these power slides into a spot. I know how to do that.
Wow.
And it has come in handy. Like there's been times where there's one time by my old house where this truck was pulling a boat, and somehow, I guess it wasn't clipped on right. The boat popped off while they're going down the road, and the boat started drifting backwards in the middle. And I did like this power slide, and I used to drive a Chrysler 200, and I did a power slide back and forth around the boat. And my wife was in the driver's seat. None of our kids were with us, thank God. And she was like, that was like you were fucking Dale Earnhardt. That was unbelievable.
All right. I'd like it on the record. I still want to go up in a jet, but I think I want to do this driving school as well. That's my number 2 ask of all our listeners.
Sweet.
So if you can get me into this driving school, let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great time. But they're going to do it. And because currently they ran 1,200 buses ran late at the first day of school in Boston last Tuesday. And 40% did not make it in time for the opening bell. And that was the best performance that the school district has had in 6 years.
That's ridiculous. But also, I'm so excited for those kids, right? Because if you're on the bus, you're where you're supposed to be. It's not your fault that you're late to school, so you can't get in trouble. So you get to miss the first part of school and no trouble. That's awesome.
All I want is it to be like the bus driver that's in Forrest Gump.
Yes.
And that's how he treats the kids, where it's like, nobody gives a GD where you're from. Go sit down. Like, okay.
I thought you were talking about
my first day at kindergarten.
I thought you were talking about Forrest's bus driver for the first day of school.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
you can sit here if you want.
Yeah.
But I thought that was amazing that they're using the National Guard for that. And it's
Wild.
amazing, but also bullshit.
Yes.
But that goes to show like these jobs before they were like pretty hard to get, like, because you're going to get a pension, you're working for the state, you're probably going to get a decent salary whenever you're doing that. And to be that short, 250 people short on school buses, that's a lot of school buses.
Hey man, what's that ribbon on your uniform? Is it a yellow ribbon with little black windows on it? What the fuck is that?
And why whenever you stop, does it go
tiny wheels on that ribbon? Yeah, what the hell?
Time to get off. I would love more things to have that kind of door though. Like where you just slot the accordion door where you could slide it open. Yeah. That's such a powerful position to be in as a bus driver. When somebody's standing there and they're giving you an attitude, like, no way, you're not coming on here with that. I'd make people sing and shit. Like before you get on, you got to sing me a tune. Yeah.
I could see just sheer appearance. Chaps could be best friends with Miss Frizzle.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Miss Frizzle could honestly probably be one of my aunts, like, and it wouldn't be surprising at all. Like, that's exactly what most of my family from Florida looks like. They're just hanging out and living in trailers and fucking driving school buses. That's just what they do.
Driving school buses.
She also got recalled to Boston.
Yeah. Well, but that's probably best for that class, whoever gets Miss Frizzle.
Yeah.
She should. All right, let's move on to round number 3. This is a little bit more serious one. And when this story initially came out about General Milley, whenever the story first came out, because it was Bob Woodward that was writing it. Bob Woodward and I think Costas were the 2 different journalists that are behind it. I was like, this is one of the more egregious stories I've ever heard of a senior officer doing something like this. So let's go with the initial reporting. That's the article that I pulled. Kate, walk us through from Stars and Stripes what the initial reporting about what General Milley did. What happened?
Okay. Fearful of Donald Trump's actions in his final weeks as president, the United States top military officer twice called his Chinese counterpart to assure him that the two nations would not suddenly go to war. This is what a senior defense official said on Tuesday after conversations were described in expert excerpts of a forthcoming book. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, told General Li Zhucheng of the People's Liberation Army and that the United States would not strike. One call took place on October 30th, 2020, 4 days before the election that defeated Trump. The second call was January 8th, 2021, just 2 days after the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol by supporters of the outgoing chief executive. Trump said Milley should be tried for treason if the report was true. Milley went so far as to promise Lee that he would warn his counterpart in the event of a U.S. attack, according to the book Peril, written by Washington Post journalists Bob Woodward and Robert Costa. The Associated Press obtained a copy of the book. Details, which are set to be released next week, were first reported by the Washington Post Tuesday. General Lee, I want to assure you that the American government is stable and everything is going to be okay, Milley told him in the first call. We are not going to attack or conduct any kinetic operations against you. If we're going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise, Milley reportedly said.
Okay, so I want to stop here because the way that so many news folks and like outlets reported this was that this was a one-on-one private conversation. If it's a one-on-one private conversation, to me, that's egregious. Like that is a conversation as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You cannot have, it cannot happen saying that I'm going to warn you if there's any strike. But it turns out with other reporting, 15 people from the United States were on the call, including other high-level defense officials and people from the Department of the State. And these calls were also conducted in the same time period that they contacted at least 20 other nations, giving them the same type of responses, just ensuring them that everything was going to go smoothly, that we were going to have a peaceful transfer of power, that there was nothing to be worried about. I think when you frame it like that, it's completely different than the way it was first reported. Do you guys agree?
No, I agree. My question is this unprecedented? As any time in our, we'll just say recent history, so the last 50 years, 50, 60 years, have we ever been in a situation where we've had to reach out to other countries and assure them that nothing was going to happen?
Yes. And that's what I thought was very interesting, because Mike Mullen actually said that this is commonplace. Like this is a common occurrence that the top military official in one country will call the other top official in another country and say, hey, we're about to have transfer of power, but we want to reassure you that things aren't going to go south, that everything's going to go smoothly. We're going to have a peaceful transfer of power. And then when the new administration comes in, we're going to contact you again and give you some of the information about what's going on and how the transition went and where we're going to go forward with our partnership or whatever. They do say it's very common. And I've seen several different official generals say that it's not just the chairman that will do that. Sometimes if you are, say you're the CENTCOM commander and there's a CENTCOM commander that's in charge of like Ukraine or the country of Georgia, that they will also contact them and let them know what's going on. Just open dialogue of communication. And Cons, me and you being fucking West Wing guys, we know that happened with General Fitzwallace too. Like that's what he did. Like he would call other people and let them know.
Yeah, no, sorry. That's a good point. I mean, if this is common practice, then I have a lot more sense of calm knowing that this is what happened, especially if it's how you reported it in terms of a lot of people being in the room and not just one country, but many countries. So I think I'm okay with it in that regard. Because
and they said that he ended up talking to leaders from the UK, Russia, Pakistan, amongst others. And after all that happened and the reports started coming out, I think partly because it was framed incorrectly, Trump came out and said that I assume he would be tried for treason, and that would have been his dealing with his Chinese counterpart behind the president's back and telling China that it would be giving them notification of an attack. Can't do that. Action should be taken immediately against Milley and better generals in our military, which many have said should get involved in another Afghanistan disaster, which never happens again. And it just goes on and on and on from there. I do think that if you are still the commander in chief, you should know or have an inkling of an idea of what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is saying. But I don't think that anyone would reasonably say you shouldn't be letting people know that we're going to have a peaceful transfer of power. I think that's incredibly commonplace.
One official said that Milley's intent in speaking with staff and commanders about the process was not a move to subvert the president, but to reaffirm procedures and ensure they were understood by everyone. I can see how this would get twisted and how whatever.
Yeah,
For sure twisted, especially now in the current landscape when you had this. Couple that with what happened with him talking to Nancy Pelosi and going over again the procedures for a nuclear attack. I think if you have an inkling that an attack is coming, it is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff responsibility to remind everybody, to remind the Joint Chiefs, to have them remind their subordinates, look, these are the procedures, these are the protocols, they will not be diverted against. You have to do everything exactly by the book. That happens across the board in the military constantly. Like, Cons, if you are doing artillery officer shit and you get an illegal order from a commanding officer above you, you're reminding your troops, this is the way we abide only by lawful orders, and we do it by a procedure. There's a certain way we have to do things. That's the responsibility of those who are in charge.
Yeah, if I deem something an unlawful order, then I wouldn't just carry it out blindly. And I think that's what sometimes people get misconstrued. And also, I think it's important to point out that the foreign policy and our foreign relations with everyone, I think it's a little more sophisticated than people give it credit for. You know, I think there's a lot of conversations going on that the American public rightfully is not privy to, that have always been going on, not just, you know, in current day, but like,
and don't give a fuck about.
Right. It's just how it's always been done, that even countries where we may not have the best relationship, there's still conversations that are going on at the highest levels to ensure that, because there are crazy,
and maybe even more so with your enemies, because you have to keep them close and know what they're doing.
Yes.
Well, this is what you're saying. These calls were coordinated and communicated through the DOD, so they weren't secret or anything. Like I'm, as you guys are talking, I'm kind of zoned out reading more about it, because I'll be honest, I don't understand this stuff. I don't know what the usual protocol is, and I'm heard myself talking, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
And we're just making it up from movies and shit.
Truly,
like,
exactly.
So I was like, maybe I should shut up and read a little more.
We've never been in those roles either. But the former Secretary of Defense, who was appointed by President Trump, not like confirmed or anything like that, but the acting Secretary of Defense had said that he wasn't aware of this. And if the reports are true that they came and it came through DOD channels, that's just not possible. If he's talking to these folks, that would go out on readouts. They have readouts of each one of those conversations, to include when the president has those type of conversations in the White House. There's going to be classified readouts. Anybody in that chain of command, especially the Secretary of Defense, has access to any of those notes at any time they want to. It doesn't have to get approval from Milley to do any of that. Like, he could have looked at any time he wanted to. But with this story reminds me so much of the Starbucks story that we talked about, where if the initial conversation that takes place after it is that he committed treason, that he did all these wrong things, that it was a private phone call, that toothpaste is never, ever going back in the tube. If this report is wrong and the way that it was phrased appears to be wrong, it won't matter, because 90% of the people that hear it first time are not going back to get the actual story of what happened. They're going to believe the first thing that they heard. They're going to think that a 4-star general who rose to the highest rank in the military of being the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff acted treasonous and acted on his own accord to subvert the power of the president of the United States. That is something that will stain Milley's reputation forever, regardless of the fact if it was true or not. But because it was reported that way, it will happen. Coupled that with the way that he walked across the street with Trump and Washington whenever the riots were going on in Washington, D.C., you have those two things. This is the most a chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has been in the public eye, and since I can remember, and possibly ever. And because of that, I think he should resign. I don't think that the chief of staff can be the story. If you're the chief of staff, you've got to be in an advisor role, and you cannot advise if you are the subject of the reports.
Right. It goes back to what I was saying earlier, where the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, all the chiefs of staff should really just kind of exist on the periphery. And, you know, if you're in the military, you might know their names, but by and large, the American public shouldn't be able to identify each and every single one by name and know exactly what they're doing each and every day. They really should just be in that advisory role that you talked about.
I'll say this. If I was his PR person and I wanted to,
you should be, honestly, you could spin on the shit out of stuff.
This is what I would do. Okay. You got to be at this big briefing tomorrow. You're going to be on TV. let's give you Cardi B ass nails, 5 inches long, bedazzled, colorful, sparkly diamonds.
Yes.
Nobody's going to know what their minds are going to be blown. What's he doing? What the fuck is
That's
this?
going to be the story.
Nobody's going to remember either of those.
Yeah.
No one's going to remember anything else. He will leave his job. He'll be the general who wore the wacky nails to the meeting.
Yeah.
Nobody will know what else he did.
There is one thing that I think that he did wrong that I am surprised that he did, and that's contacting the admiral of the Indochina Pacific whenever he was having them adjust course and address training. That is something that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff does not normally do. That should come from the chief of staff of the Navy or the admiral of the Navy, whatever the fuck that position is called. I think it is the CNO. Yeah, the chief of naval operations. That should come from him, not from Milley. Like the fact that he was involved in that, because Milley is not a commanding officer. He is an advisor. He can't order the CNO to do anything. He can't order the commandant to do anything because that's not the way that it works. Like he can't do that. So I am surprised that he contacted that person and had him adjust training or suggested that they would adjust training. That's something that I thought was very strange.
Sounds to me like Milley calling everywhere. Milley calling everywhere. Calling everywhere. Anyway.
Yeah. And the last thing they're going to have different types of hearings about this, and they should. Like this is something that I believe should be open. It shouldn't be closed. It should be open hearing so everybody can hear his answers. But the thing that is very frustrating about this is that it's not going to be normal questions. Everybody has their position already established. You see it with like Senator Rubio, and Senator Rubio said that he needs to go in and look at it because actively undermining the president and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces is treasonous leak of classified information to the Chinese party. It could be treasonous. And then you had Ted Cruz echo some of those statements. And then you have Nancy Pelosi saying that he didn't do anything wrong. He did, like, they already have their opinions formulated.
Yeah.
And that's just so frustrating, and something that is incredibly important, not just in the now, but in establishing precedent and how we move forward. I think that part of it is going to be incredibly frustrating for those of us that keep close eye on the military. And I will say most of the folks that I respect about their military positions on stuff, Milley really did himself a disservice because they say he's doing all this. And can you guys guess what I'm going to say?
He's writing a book.
No. Cons?
He's getting
Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
No, he's fat. Like he's doing all this stuff and he's out of regs.
I've seen some people saying like, what's his PFT or ACFT or whatever the hell the Army does now. I need to see his scores. Doesn't help. You got to look the part in the uniform.
Yeah.
Sorry to say.
Millie Cyrus. He's just trying to.
And especially the pink and greens are usually slimming, but he's not experiencing that pleasure.
No.
Trump's coming out of
you know what's crazy
ball.
though too?
I
don't think I've ignored all these. These are amazing.
We can't stop.
The problem, it's funny. Guy with special forces, you would think he would be a fit dude even into his older years. So I don't
know, man. As somebody like you and I have both have experienced it ourselves, Cons. Like if you give it an inch, once you reach past like 35, you're big fucked if you let it go.
Not to mention, if you have a bunch of office jobs, especially how he has, the last 15 years of his career, there's probably just always like bowls of M&Ms handy. And next thing you know, you're always taking a handful every time you go by.
And not just that, when's the last, occasionally you'll have a general level officer, even like a 07, a brigadier general, that will have to walk to somebody's office. But by and large, when people are coming to meet with you, if you're the general, even a 1-star general, people are walking to your office, not the other way around.
Right.
You walk from your car to your office, and that's where you stay the whole day.
Yeah. Gosh. See, and Kate gives us a hard time about, fat shaming.
Why? More like General Mills eating all that Reese's Puffs.
You got that right, Kate.
Child, you unlocked another level of jokes reserved for moms and dads. You've unlocked the mom joke.
She's always had it deep down, but she finally had that Pandora's box get opened up.
I haven't listened to anything you guys have said in the last 5 minutes.
I'm very aware. When I see you, I was like, she's looking for other jokes to go along with this, which is
to the Milley Rock.
Perfectly fine. And another serious note, we have Craig Whitlock from the Washington Post, who did an unbelievable job securing documents and letters and private emails through the Freedom of Information Act that must have just taken an extraordinary amount of work to get all these and compiled it into a book that it will literally make you want to pull your fucking hair out if you care about what happened in Afghanistan. I sat down with Craig and talked to him about that and so much more. We talk about a little bit of the drone strike that happened in Afghanistan and what we can look for as far as accountability for that and the last action that the Americans took there, and with the killing of 7 children and 10 people overall. We're going to talk about that. You're going to enjoy this interview. Here's Craig Whitlock. All right, now in Zero Block 30, we're privileged to have we've been talking about his work really for the last couple years, since 2019 when the Afghanistan Papers first came out. We have Craig Whitlock from the Washington Post. He also published the Afghanistan Papers, and you've been all over the place because I don't know if it's felt this way for you, but for us covering military stuff all the time, it seems like people are just now figuring out or remembering the boondoggle really that Afghanistan was. Is that kind of how you're feeling too?
Yeah, so I actually covered the Pentagon and the military's a beat from 2010 to 2017. And, you know, it was hard to get the public to pay much attention to what was going on, particularly after Obama's surge drew down. In recent years, it's been hard. I mean, we get stories in the Post, we write a lot of coverage, but it's been hard to get the public to really pay attention to what's going on. Of course, that all changed very quickly, starting, frankly, in July of this year.
And what do you think was the catalyst of that picking up in July?
Well, once Biden finally said he was bringing all the troops home, and it looked like he had as of the end of July, really, even though the end date was the end of August, pretty much all the troops had pulled out except for this residual force to guard the embassy at the end of July. But what really, of course, lit up for most people was seeing the coverage of the Taliban just sweeping through all the provincial capitals in August and then waltzing into Kabul without any resistance. And then, of course, seeing all the images of the evacuation taking place at the Kabul airport. You know, I think up till then, most Americans really tuned out. And then all of a sudden they saw the Taliban in control of the whole country. And it really started to dawn on them that the Taliban had won the war.
Yeah. And I think that those statements of hearing American media acknowledging the fact that the Taliban was going to be back in power, no matter what happened in the next couple of weeks, the Taliban was going to be in power. And I would imagine after writing and compiling the Afghanistan Papers, hearing folks in the State Department and the Pentagon talking about how we had no idea that it would fall this quickly. Were you buying any of that from the get-go?
Well, yes and no. So I got to admit, I was surprised by how quickly the Taliban swept through. I mean, in less than 10 days, they captured every provincial capital and Kabul, right? I mean, I knew they had the upper hand on the ground and they controlled most of the rural areas. And I knew they would start rolling through pretty steadily, but I was surprised at how fast that was. Now, then again, I'm a reporter based back in the United States. I don't have this unparalleled intelligence network like the US government does. And so,
or supposedly, hopefully the American government, they haven't shown it lately.
Right. But so for them to be caught flat-footed, I mean, even when it was clear the Taliban was really knocking at the door, I mean, President Biden was dismissing this, and Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, was saying, oh, it isn't like the country's going to fall over a weekend, which of course is pretty close to what happened. So yeah, they were unprepared, and it was obvious that they didn't foresee this either.
And do you think over the course of really the entire conflict, because there's so many areas that you could say that the American government needed to improve, obviously the way that we doled out that $132 billion, and where you say, or the Afghanistan Papers say that 40% of that fell into the hands of warlords and things like that. What do you think was the root of that problem specifically?
I think, again, it gets back to a bigger problem, which is we just fundamentally didn't understand Afghanistan. And you see this, you hear this time and again in the documents we obtained for the Afghanistan Papers, where people who are in charge at the State Department or the Defense Department would say, we just didn't understand Afghanistan. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't understand the society. We didn't have people who spoke the languages, even though the United States was there for 20 years and with hundreds of thousands of people cycling in and out and spending hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, it's still kind of sobering to think how little we understood the society. And we took our messages from our allies in the Afghan government, but we didn't have our finger on the pulse in the rural areas, especially, and we just didn't understand. So with the corruption and all the money ending up in the pockets of warlords or criminal networks or the Taliban, I think, again, it was this kind of thing. We were handing out money like nobody's business. And everybody in Afghanistan was like, hey, yeah, I want a piece of that. But it didn't occur to us that was going to happen. I think there was such a rush during the Obama years to try and change things within 18 or 24 months that we just threw money at the problem and weren't real concerned about if a lot of the money was going to the wrong place.
And we really did the same thing in Iraq. I mean, I remember being there in 2007 and seeing cash that was just handed out to different people to like leave their houses so we could take it over for a period of a week or anything like that. And one of the main things that we hear, because we are much more in tune with the junior enlisted, the junior officers on this show, we constantly hear from the people that have been on the ground. We don't know how they didn't expect this. Like, did you find in your reporting that people that were lower on the chain of command passing things up was more accurate information? And then as more senior you get, they are removed from the situation a little bit more. So they're not exactly giving the same picture of what was happening on the ground.
That's exactly what was happening. But it was even worse than that. The people on the ground on the front lines, they were giving pretty accurate reports, but they would then say in these interviews we obtained that it would get twisted around the higher up it went, that if we had bad news, higher headquarters didn't want to hear it. And they would tell us to change the assessments, or they would manipulate the stats, or we would say, look, this Afghan army unit isn't ready to take over this district. And we would get told, nope, they're ready. You have to certify that they are. That, there was one interview with a guy who said, they just want to hear bad news at military headquarters in Kabul. He said it was one thing if, there's an MRAP runs over some kids or something, some isolated incident, that was okay to pass up the chain. But the broader questions or concerns that things weren't going well or things were failing, they didn't want to hear it. And so people learned either they were going to get overruled or just not to say it at all, because they knew that bad news, there was no appetite for it.
And we feel on this show, I feel very strongly that the reason why that happens is because of the way that the military does promotions and awards. Like, you don't get awards for having bad news to your commander. Like, if you say things are really not going great here and we haven't accomplished anything in 6 months, that's not what you want to take back to your commanders on the like that higher headquarters. It almost feels like we're decentivizing telling the truth of what we see on the ground. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and that's another thing that comes out loud and clear in the Afghanistan papers. And I think even some people in positions of command knew that. I mean, there was a long interview with Michael Flynn, the Army general, and I mean, he's sort of notorious now for his politics, but this interview he gave back in 2015, he pinpointed this. He said, look, every single report I've seen coming out of Afghanistan, whether it's battalion commander or whatever, they all go in and say how screwed up things are. And then by the time their tour's over, 9 months or 12 months later, every single one of them said, we accomplished the mission. We achieved what we set out to do. And then the next guy comes in, or the next unit to replace it comes in and says, oh my God, this is a mess, and we've got to fix it. And then at the end of their tour say, we fixed it. Because you're right, who's going to say they failed at the mission?
Right.
Nobody's going to ever say that, because then they're screwed, right? So, but this is this feedback loop that just perpetuates itself. And I know it sounds crazy in retrospect, but that went on for 20 years.
And that it's really mind-blowing that it was a continuous cycle that happened over and over and over again. And we at the junior level, like, you're told if you have a deficiency to create a corrective action. Since the withdrawals happened, there's been plenty of deficiencies that have been outlined. Has your reporting showed any of the corrective action that any of the high-level defense officials are acknowledging needs to take place, or is that still in the process?
I don't even know if it's in the process. I don't know that it started. I mean, that's going to be a tough one, because for that to happen, some people who are in charge are going to have to own up to failings on their watch and that they didn't listen at the reports being passed up to them. And I think there's still reluctance to do that. There was an interesting documentary on CNN the other night where they interviewed actually 8 former commanding generals from Afghanistan. It was the first time I've seen that many interviewed at once. And the questions were specifically, what happened on your watch? You know, was this worth it? Did we fail? I mean, the questions were a little tougher than you get on TV sometimes. These weren't just people on there as pundits. And, you know, they were kind of squirming, right, to answer it and give honest answers about it. And you could tell they were, you know, just kind of coming to grips with it. And some of them admitted, yeah, we failed, or it wasn't worth it, or, you know, this didn't work out. And that's really the first time I've heard some people at the 3 or 4 star level acknowledge that in public. So I guess in a way that's a big step, but it seems like there's a long way to go to have a real accountability or reappraisal or reckoning with what happened.
And that seems to be odd that it would happen on a place like CNN rather than in Congress, and not having open forums and open questions about what we actually need to do, because it's really important for the next conflict that we get in, that we understand. We've done it twice now, in Vietnam and here again in Afghanistan, and really in Iraq as well. Where do we go? And it doesn't seem like anybody's really answering those questions. And like you mentioned, you have guys that were in charge, like Petraeus, that are out really passing the buck and not taking responsibility. Do you think that day ever will come? And if not, how does the American military really respond to this leadership vacuum that we're seeing?
So the first part of the question, do I see it happening? I'm not holding my breath. And part of the reason is Congress is complicit. Right.
Right.
I mean, it's their job to be the check and balance, and they are the ones who authorize all the money. And in recent years, they've hardly held any hearings on Afghanistan. I think the last war commander, General Scott Miller, he appeared in public before Congress only once. That was at his confirmation hearing. Every other time it was behind closed doors. He was there almost 3 years. So Congress isn't pushing, even when the war was still going on, to get answers or have any accountability. When we first published the Afghanistan Papers series in the Washington Post back in December 2019, there were some committees that held some hearings, and, you know, they kind of clicked their tongues and said this was bad, but, you know, that was about it. There wasn't anything sustained. And part of the problem is, you know, members of both parties, the leadership of both parties had endorsed all these strategies and campaign plans that went on for 20 years. So for them to try and hold people accountable, they can't just hold people in uniform accountable, they have to hold themselves accountable. And I don't, you know, Congress, I'm not holding my breath, they'll do that anytime soon.
And it's not just Congress, it's the Secretary of State. Secretary Blinken just the other day said that they received a deadline, but they didn't see any plan whenever they came in. And it's just, and to me, as just a staff NCO Marine, I'm like, what are you did it, you executed it, take responsibility somehow, some way. You have to take responsibility. Somebody does. And all we heard for years and years and years was that Afghanistan, we're about to turn the corner. We're turning the corner. From your reporting, did you ever see a time where it looked like we actually might be able to turn the corner, but we made some wrong decisions along the way?
Yeah.
No.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Not really. You know, I think there was some sincere hope under Obama when he sent the surge troops over. Mm-hmm. I think there was some hope that maybe that could work, right? I think people who were in charge genuinely believed this might work out. The problem was when it became clear that it probably wasn't, because the Afghan government was too corrupt and the Afghan army and police just weren't ever going to be ready to take over. That's when they really started laying it on thick about, you know, deceiving the public about this stuff. I mean, you remember this started 10 years ago. The troops start rotating back, and we'd hear from the generals about, yeah, the Afghan army, the Afghan police are ready to take over in this district, in this province, and they're going to defeat the Taliban. And they knew from the reports coming up the chain of command that the Afghans were not ready, probably never would be ready, but they kept, you know, at that point it was too late. Nobody wanted to say, hold on a second, this isn't working out. Because, you know, who's going to contradict not only the commanders or the people at the Pentagon, but who's going to contradict the commander in chief who's saying it's working, right? You know what happens when you do that? There were a couple of people who did publicly, in their career ends. So nobody wants to say the truth.
Yeah, and we saw some of that. What happened with like Captain Rosier, for instance, this last year with his ship having the huge COVID outbreaks and him being honest and forthright to the command, and that was looked bad upon. Was there anybody that sticks out like a Captain Rosier that would have that kind of clout that was pushing information up to higher headquarters that was just flat out getting ignored and changed?
Nobody was at that level. Nobody at that rank. There was a guy. He was Lieutenant Colonel Danny Davis. I think he was an 05, so he's not high up the chain of command, but I think he wrote an article in Armed Services Journal, and he went public in appropriate forums to say back in 2010, 2011 that, look, this isn't working. This whole premise that the Afghan government, we can build it up to defend their own country is just, it's naive at best. And, and of course, reporters cover it and ask the powers that be for response, and they all knock them down, right? And so not only are they knocking down a guy who's an 05 or 06, they're sending a message to everybody else. The one commander who really did try and level it, I think, with the American public was an Army general, a 4-star, David McKiernan. He had been in Iraq, and then he came to Afghanistan 2008, 2009 under Bush and Obama. He was really the first commanding general to say, we're at a stalemate or the war is going in the wrong direction. And he was asking for more troops, more resources, but he wasn't super blunt in public, but he was the first guy who admitted we weren't making progress. And he gets sacked in May of 2009 by the Defense Secretary, Bob Gates. And it was a big deal. This is the first war commander in charge of a whole war who got fired since General MacArthur during the Korean War by Truman, right? And Gates couldn't explain what he had done wrong. All the reporters asked him, but what did he must have done something really bad to get fired. And Gates just said, no, we need new thinking, new leadership, even though Gates had put McKiernan in the job. But in documents we obtained for my book, McKiernan had told people in Afghanistan, other Army officers said, I think I did too good a job of telling people how bad it is over here. So the message,
it's the only one. It's just so frustrating as somebody that like spent a portion of your life invested, not just doing it, but training people to do it. It's infuriating to us to be, these are the people that you're putting in charge to lead us into sometimes our death. And they can't even be honest with the American public about what's going on. It's absolutely infuriating to hear, because I remember this in 2009. I was still on active duty and saying, damn, a 4-star came out and said that things that we're losing. Like that wasn't even a term that was in our lexicon about things aren't going our way, unless you were on the junior level and you saw what was happening because you were doing deployment after deployment, oftentimes returning to the same area and sometimes apprehending the same exact people over and over again.
Well, but again, think of the message that gets sent when a 4-star gets fired like that for not being optimistic enough. I mean, you think anybody's going to then, everybody's going to toe the line and repeat the talking points about we're showing progress, we're turning the corner, and they did. It actually only started to change again under Trump when things were so obviously not going well in Afghanistan that we weren't, the Afghans army wasn't capable. General John Nicholson was the war commander, and he started to actually use phrases like we're in a stalemate, right? And Trump, who had promised that we're going to win, blew his stack, right? He didn't want his commanders, being anything but saying anything but total victory. And as soon as Trump blew his stack, then they all went back to repeating what he said. Yeah, we're going to win. This new strategy is going to work. We're going to show the Taliban something they haven't felt before. So they all, it comes from the commander in chief, right? Obama, Trump, what have you. Nobody's going to contradict them.
And did any of those papers that were leaked talk about the influence of like a Mattis or a Kelly or an Allen that all had significant time in Afghanistan being in command too, where they, after getting those high level positions in the Trump administration, where they wanted to approach Afghanistan any differently, or was it still the status quo?
I think it was still the status quo. And just to correct one thing, so I mean, I'm a little sensitive about this because I'm a reporter. we didn't get these leaked to us, these documents. We had to fight for them in court for 3 years under the Freedom Information Act. I wish somebody had leaked them to me, because then
I wanted to ask you about that, because I knew it wasn't going to be an easy process. I mean, but the Department of Defense really, and since 2012, I would think it really changed. The amount of information that was coming out is nothing, and getting anything freedom of information could take a long time. I imagine it was tooth and nail, court fight after court fight to get this stuff. Is that really what happened with you?
It took 3 years. We're still in court trying to get more documents from these interviews and more names of people who were interviewed, because we think it's important for accountability that if somebody said, yeah, we knew we were losing, we just didn't want to admit it in public, that person's name should be known to the American people, right? They don't get to hide behind anonymity on that.
You're not a private contractor, you're a public employee.
Yeah, and if they don't get to hide their real thoughts. I mean, when you're talking about a war where people are sacrificing their lives, they're, God knows what else. I mean, if we can't tell the truth about that, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, it's baffling that it comes to that. And do you think that with the new revelations that are going to come out, do you think eventually this changes the doctrine and how that Congress, because what I look at what you're doing right now, in my estimation, you are doing with your reporting and getting freedom of information, that is exactly what Congress should be doing. Congress should be the ones getting into it, but they have abdicated their responsibilities to the Constitution and the military by not doing any of those things.
Yeah, I don't see that changing unless, I mean, maybe over time you get new lawmakers from both parties who weren't involved in all these authorizations in Afghanistan, people with fresh eyes coming in. I mean, clearly the appetite politically is a lot less than it used to be to get involved in faraway conflicts. The pendulum's shifted in that regard. But until we get, frankly, all new leadership in Congress from both parties, I don't see that there's ever going to be any drive to accountability. I mean, the people who are the heads of the armed services committees in the House and the Senate, they're people who have been in Congress a long time. They're not going to all of a sudden start having hearings into what went wrong and who was responsible, because that's an admission that they hadn't done their job. So I think till we really see time pass and new people in, that's probably not going to change, unfortunately.
And I think that'll be disappointing for a long time, because I know when I was going through your book, I was just like, man, it just gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. And I think that the more information that comes out as your court cases will continue to be successful, I would imagine that more and more information will come out. Since the withdrawals happened, has there been any major players in your book that surprised you with any public statements?
To be honest, I'm sort of surprised in a different way than you might think. When we first published our original series in December 2019, saying that, look, people who are in charge lied about the war, they didn't tell the truth, there's a lot of pushback from those people. They would say, well, maybe we too much happy talk, maybe we were too optimistic, but they were adamant they never lied, they always told the truth. But now most of them are admitting that they weren't honest, or they should have told the American people more of a straight assessment. So I've been surprised by they're changing their tune gradually. Now, part of it is, what are they going to say, right? We all saw what happened in the last 6 weeks. We saw the Taliban come through, take over the whole country. We saw the Afghan army and police surrender. I mean, are they going to say their strategy was working? Are they going to say this big nation building experiment was a success? No. And so when we repeat their public statements over the last 15 or 20 years in print and match them up with what was being said privately, it's really hard for them now to say, oh yeah,
what are you going to say? Yeah. I mean, it'd just be impossible just to respond in any way that gains any type of respect at all. And my last question for you is on the withdrawal side, we had 10 civilian deaths. Several of them were kids. I believe 7 of them were children on one of the last strikes. Throughout your research and throughout all the information that you had to get through the Freedom of Information Act, did you ever see when there was a major civilian casualty, that there was collateral damage that was significant, anyone ever talk about accountability for high-level officers?
No, I can't think of one. There was that really bad incident in Kunduz in 2015 or 2016, where the United States we did airstrikes on that Doctors Without Borders hospital.
Right.
Right. Even though they had relayed the coordinates to military headquarters, they still got bombed. There was a big investigation, a real big hue and cry into that, but nobody senior, at least not by name, was ever held to account. And you would see this happen time and again through Afghanistan. I mean, this last case you talk about in Kabul, where a bunch of civilians were killed in that drone strike. I mean, even today, the Pentagon just sort of barely acknowledges that maybe some civilians got killed, and they say they'll investigate, but nobody's holding their breath. And that was just the most visible recent occurrence, because reporters could get in there to talk to family members and witnesses, and there was video footage, so it could kind of get reported out. But there were so many incidents like that, airstrikes in the rural areas in Afghanistan over the last 20 years. And, you know, it stands to reason, right? It wasn't a one-off recently. That was the kind of thing that happened pretty frequently. But, you know, on one hand, I get that things like that happen in war sometimes, but there's just been no pattern of accountability by senior leaders to really figure out what happened, but to hold anybody at their level accountable for mistakes made like that.
And do you think that that has been have you sensed the big issue with junior troops as opposed to their senior levels, where if you're a junior troop, I remember the rules of engagement, like when my co-host Kate was there, where you had to wait until somebody fired at you in order to fire back. And you had to be able to see the muzzle blast and look at it and know exactly where it was coming for before you can engage your weapon. You have those rules. And if you break them even slightly, even if and you have all kinds of investigation that goes on, and then you kill 10 civilians with the order of your airstrike. It's just another example of how people at the top just will never be accountable, and the people at the bottom are the ones that are taking the brunt of everything.
Well, and I'll get on this most recent case we're talking about. It's a good example. We can't even get a straight answer from the Pentagon or the Biden administration who authorized it, right? At what level? And on background, meaning anonymous sources, they're trying to push, oh, it wasn't the president, right? It wasn't the secretary, you know, the work, you know, they're trying to push it down, the responsibility. But of course, nobody specifies at what level or who gave the all clear for it, who approved it. And if we can't even find that out, how's there going to be any accountability? And so again, you're right. The people at the top are protected. The people at the lower ranks are the ones who take the fall usually if something happens. And you know, but that's the pattern we've seen in the last 20 years, no question.
And it's really frustrating to hear phrases like the buck stops here, because it doesn't. Like the buck doesn't stop anywhere. It just swirls around for 20 years and nobody ever takes responsibility. Craig, thank you so much. If you guys, where do you prefer people pick up the book? Local bookstores or Amazon? Okay.
You know, actually right now, the irony is the book's been doing really well, but we're running out of copies. And so Barnes and Noble has a lot. Amazon's running dry at the moment. So wherever you can find it, we're grateful. But fortunately, I think it's striking a chord, because people, when they read it, they get mad. They always sense this kind of stuff was going on, that they weren't being told the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's all laid out right in front of them, you know, I think it makes an impression on people, but it makes them furious too, to read it in such clear language.
Yep. I was sitting out in my living room reading it over the weekend, and I had one of those, I don't know if you watch Friends, but Joey, whenever he would read The Shining by Stephen King, whenever he would get to a scary part, he wanted to put it in the freezer. And there are so many parts during reading it where I'm like, I just got to put this thing in the fucking freezer. I can't even look at it right now. I don't even want to read the words that are on the page.
Or somewhere else. Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Well, Craig, thanks so much. And we appreciate you coming on. We hope to have you again.
You bet. Thanks, chaps. Take care.
The part that really stuck out when I talked to Craig to me was the ending of everything, because we knew what it was going to be like, that nobody was going to take responsibility. Right. But I've had several folks reach out to me and be like, look, man, and even Killzone, he talked about it on his Instagram, where it's like, if this was a junior troop, if this was anybody 04 and below and E7 and below, and they went against rules of engagement, they did this type of thing, they would be getting court-martialed in a second. Like a second, you would do that. If you caused the death of 10 people, you would be hung from a yardarm. I'm not sure if the Navy hangs people from yardarms anymore, but you get the point.
They walk the plank, I think is what it is. But yes, no, it's incredibly, incredibly unfair. And what is it? The loss of when you lose faith in command or whatever, like
trust and confidence, faith and confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I feel like that has, if I was still in, I'd be like, whoa, who the fuck is steering this ship? Because what the fuck? Like, yeah, accountability is still, my friends and I, we still have our group chats going. Like, this has really brought me and my old Marine buddies back together and like communicating again. And that's one of the biggest things of it is, why the fuck can't somebody stand up and take accountability?
Think about it like this, because we also work for a gambling company. Now, Kate, if I gave you $1,000 and just gave it to you and said, don't worry about it. If you lose it, you lose it. You might be willy-nilly. But if I said to you, all right, take $1,000 out of your own bank account, you're going to be a little more precise with what you're gambling on. And I think as you go up the ladder in our military, especially, I think there's because you feel like because of rank, because of position, there's less, I don't want to say likelihood, but you don't feel like you might necessarily get held accountable for certain things because it is on such a large scale, right? Like, oh, how could I possibly be punished for all of Afghanistan when so many people have touched it? Where I think sometimes these leaders get a little more loose with their decision-making, because if they knew, like, all right, if this goes wrong, I am going to be court-martialed and I am going to lose my rank, my privilege, my retirement pay, I think they might think about it a little differently.
Well, the ones prosecuting them would be their peers, and they all have a golf outing on Saturday. So
Exactly.
And Congress is fucked up too. Like, they have gotten rid of their ability to do anything with it as well. To me, it's like being a junior troop in a combat zone is kind of like going to the grocery store with your parents. Like, you are going to be in the grocery store. They're going to be throwing in different types of turkey, ham, wine, whatever they want. Anything that they want, they see, they're going to put it in the cart as soon as they get that. But if you have one little mistake of bad behavior, you don't get the Tic Tacs at checkout. Like, you aren't allowed to have the check because you messed up and you did something bad. They get to have whatever they want to, but you're the only one that has any type of punishment whatsoever. And it's infuriating whenever you're looking at it from like a junior troop, because talking to Craig and seeing the different reports, all of the different things that we've talked about on this show for 5 years, that it's all about how you're going to get promoted next, all about your awards. That's the only reason why most of these folks were reporting things up the chain of command the way they were, because they wanted the next spot, they wanted the next award, they wanted the next promotion, and that's just what kept on.
Turds. We were handing up the turds on the boots on the ground level, saying this is a turd, and they were shining it and passing it on to look good. Also, quick note: thank God for people like Craig Whitlock, who put so much time and energy. I
could never do that. What he did, I could never do it.
I could never do it, and that is so needed. That's so important what he has done. That's so important. So I'm thankful for all the journalists that keep digging and keep
being so organized that you could do that. Like, if I don't hear back from somebody and I've emailed them like twice, I'm like, well, fuck it. This person's basically dead to me. But to go in and go Freedom of Information Act over and over and over again, appealing through lawyers and all that different stuff, it's just a testament to how much really the media matters, because without people like Craig Whitlock, these stories never come out. Like, the actual accountability could happen, but it's only through reporting like this. It's not because the DOD is going to give up the information themselves.
Right. Yeah, never. But you know who I bet's relieved that he's completed in most part the project? If he has a partner, a spouse or whatever, I bet they're like, thank God.
Right.
I have to hear about this thing he found yesterday in the Library of Congress. Oh my God.
And he can't tell anybody else about it. And he's only telling, I can't tell you how many times we've had those conversations where I'll be telling Annalise about a blog I'm working on or an interview. And she'll just look at me and be like, dude, honest to God, I love you, but I could not care less about this. Like, at all. And it makes sense, because when she tells me about her job, I don't care, except for this one little thing. And this thing my wife is actually doing, she's organizing, and I want people to listen to this show, the veterans and active duty who listen to this show, to take advantage. I'm going to put it in the link on my bio on Instagram, but I want you guys to go check it out, because we're going to partner with this nonprofit that my wife is a big part of. She runs it, and they are going to see how active duty and retired and veterans feel about their dental care, and how veterans get their dental care when they're separated. And the goal is going to be to design a better system to benefit the veterans. And if you do this, you get a chance to win a Amazon gift card or a GameStop gift card or something like that. And the information is going to go in and hopefully be designed to help the VA figure out a way to get dental care, because there's been all kinds of different reporting done. Did you guys know this, that PTSD can affect your dental health? Like people that have
who suffers from depression, one of the early signs to me that I'm going down a rabbit hole is I stopped brushing my teeth. That sounds gross, but it's one of the things, like,
and it's super common.
Stop taking care of myself, and it's one of the first signs. Oh my God.
And not just that, but not just like your response to depression and stopping brushing your teeth, but there's a physiological response because of the way that your blood does, like the way that your blood flows. People that have depression or PTSD have been proven through different research that they are going to have more dental issues as they grow up, and they're more likely to have their teeth fall out and all kinds of shit. So it's a real quick survey. It should take 5 minutes. Check it out. It's going to be in my bio on Instagram, and we'll put some swipe ups for it too. I'm really excited about that. And see if that actually helps, because getting people help is awesome. Let's move into round number 5. This one I'm fascinated by because I am a dog handler by trade, and I saw this story. What?
Got your ass.
Oh, I didn't hear you. I missed a good pun.
No, you did exactly what you were supposed to do.
It was a cow joke. Lead us in. It was an interrupting cow joke. I interrupted you.
Oh, well, then I didn't hear the interruption. Okay. So it turns out cows can be potty trained as easily as toddlers, maybe even easier.
So that means they can't be potty trained easily. Am I right? That is not.
Well, easy. It depends. Kelsey was so easy. Like really? Kelsey, I was like, Kelsey, this is where you're going to poop at, and this is where you're going to pee at. And then like fucking 3 weeks later, she was done. Like it was like, I'm done. She did after like 2.5. She didn't even need pull-ups.
Holy shit.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I always, before I had McCartney, I was like, it's because I'm such a good parent. Like, this is the reason why Kelsey is so sweet and so innocent and so pure. It's because I'm a great father. And now I have McCartney, and it's like, no, that's just who Kelsey was. Yeah. McCartney is a very different type of human altogether. But I was fascinated when I first came to be a cat dad or around cats, because I had never been around cats until Annalise was in my life. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was amazing that cats just instinctually know to go pee and poop in a litter box. I always thought that was fascinating. Who figured that out? This is the smell that makes them want to pee or poop.
Like,
I don't know.
I think it's in nature. They find somewhere they can dig. And so if you give them an environment in the house, like litter, they're like,
but it's the smell. Like, even if you put it in, they'll look for the smell of the litter. They all smell the same. And there's something about that smell where it creates almost like a natural Pavlovian response to cats. Well, they'll have to pee or poop in there.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So just like some parents, researchers used a sweet treat to coax the cow, because that's what I used to do. I used to, with McCartney, we would go to the dollar store and get all kinds of different dollar store toys and put them in like a basket. And if you poop in there, or if you pee in the toilet, then you get one of those toys. They're essentially doing that with the cows and offered them a sweet treat. And the cows are as good as children, 2 and 4, and they learn this just as quick. They said on a New Zealand talk show that it's a very real problem that livestock waste resulted in serious studies that could cause big time damage to some of the farms. Because I didn't know this either. Do you know a single cow can produce 8 gallons of piss a day?
No, didn't know that, but it makes sense.
Well, they say I grew up in a big farm area, and when it would rain and stuff, and we used to go, like, I would ride my bike a few miles and go swimming in the creeks and the rivers and whatever. And whenever it rained, they'd be like, don't, all the runoff from the farms. There's so much cow shit in the water that you'll get sick. There's so much cow piss and shit that runs off because they piss and shit so crazy much. Don't do it. Like, wait a few days. So
yeah, and it's so much that it's 7% of all nitrous oxide in the United States that causes greenhouse gases comes from cows. 7%. And
that's an enormous percentage.
I mean, think about all the people, the cars, all the different things like smog, all that shit. And 7% is from cow piss and shit. Like, that is so much. And it says that they are able to put this material down and that they will learn how to urinate there. And the craziest part of it to me is that they did it in just like 2 weeks. They figured out how to do this, but you guys are going to be disappointed. They only trained the cows to urinate, not to poop in there.
Oh, I mean, like, what is even the point then?
This is cool though. They said they almost made like a special pen that they know to walk into, like a special, like
poop pen.
It's like a bathroom. Yeah.
Go to the right corner of the field. This is the urinal, and so
They
the
have their own little cow wag bags.
Yeah, that's cool. That's pretty impressive though. I mean, it sounds like one of those crazy ideas, but if it works, it fucking works, man.
And they said that they believe that they could teach the cows to urinate and defecate. And the substance that they use is called the moo-loo, like the loo, like the bathroom, the moo-loo. Love that. But they said they don't think that they can teach the cows how to not fart or burp, which is
right.
Well, I guess that's a bridge too far, as they say.
Can you imagine if there was like a tiny little phone booth in your house you had to run to every time you had to rip ass?
No, I cannot, because it's.
I mean, there kind of is, right? Like if you were polite to the people that live here.
Yeah, it's called the bathroom.
It's a bathroom.
That's true. I turn on the sink.
Can you imagine if there's like one room in your house where you're supposed to shit in? That's outrageous.
Okay.
You should really think about making those.
Cash did it this morning in his little jumper. He was crushing it.
Hasn't learned it yet.
Shit everywhere.
That's his area where he does it.
You should. That's what a subject that you should try to do for high chair is to see how fast you can train it. Did you know, Kate? There is things of how to potty train infants. One
on TikTok, chaps.
Have you seen it?
I'm following a woman who started potty training her infant at 3 weeks old.
What?
Yep. My wife's best friend from growing up has done it and it works.
Wait,
like
what does it even matter? If they're 3 weeks, they can't move on their own.
Right. Here's what it is. They're like, oh, whatever, the long run. No, you probably spend so much more time potty training them at this age than you ever would dealing with their shit for the years following. Like,
do you know how they do it though?
Baby on the fucking go ahead.
That's not potty training. That's just guessing that you know when they're going to go and holding them over.
It's not though, dude. Like it's almost like the same. People always get upset when I say that training children is a lot like training dogs because there's so many behavioral things that you do. Like for me, I know when Gus and Dale eat, 20 minutes after they eat, they're going to need to go outside and take a shit. So I know that for sure. These parents can almost time the amount of time that the baby eats and how long it takes them to learn how to that they're going to pee, and they like establish a little average. So they'll feed them, wait like 10 minutes, and then they hold them over a little bucket and they'll go and then they wipe them, and they just keep doing that over and over again. Eventually, the behavioral, the way that the brain works, the baby sees the little bucket and knows that it's supposed to go, just like a dog does whenever you say take a break. Like Saika, I could take Saika outside at any time and be like, take a break. And even if he didn't have to pee, he would lift his leg up like he was peeing. Like it was just a thing that he did because of the command that I would give him. And the babies can learn that too. I'm not sure if it's good psychologically for the children.
I feel like that might be too young.
But what a party trick, right?
Yes.
Great party trick. Great party trick. And a great way to make other parents feel like shit.
Feel inadequate.
Your kid's a year old. They're
still in diapers.
They're not crawling to the toilet and climbing up on it and taking a dump.
It's like that asshole kid that goes to Columbia now that started learning how to read when he was 9 months old. And like they have video of him reading books at 9 months old. It's like,
it took him that long. Oh, it took him 9 months.
How old was Cash? Right away?
Wow, 4 months. He speaks Cantonese.
Oh,
very advanced.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard the embassy is
always so jealous about the kids in France. They can speak French. That's so smart.
It's unbelievable.
So smart.
It's so advanced.
Very cool too.
Seriously.
They smoke cigarettes by like age 7, which is also extremely cool.
That is very cool. You know what else is cool? Our friends at Rocky Boots, because they have the best boots in the game, and they're going to be presenting partner today of the save rounds and alibis. If you don't have Rocky Boots yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. You can potty train. You can go take a cow to get potty trained. You can do whatever you want in the Rocky Boots. You can do a little bit of construction. You can do some projects around the house like I have. I'm getting so good at electrical stuff in my house, and I feel so much more comfortable doing it because I know I have these shoes that are designed where I'm not supposed to be able to conduct electricity all the way through my body, which is a nice little thing. They also have steel toe.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm happy to hear that you're not going to electrocute yourself.
Yeah.
It was touch and go there for a little bit. I mean, because you electric stuff and plumbing stuff is so scary to mess with because you can ruin your house in a heartbeat.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then really cause a problem.
But you're not going to do that with Rocky Boots. They're designed and built for each one of the U.S. military branches. It was recently payday, so you're going to take advantage of that by going to rockyboots.com, enter the promo code ZBT at checkout for 25% off your next pair of Rocky Boots. You're going to love them. They're so comfortable. They last for a long ass time and they look good. And you're not going to get yelled at by your supervisor for being a nasty little worm with dirty fucking boots, which nobody wants. That Kate can speak from experience, right, Kate?
True story. And also, they're comfy as fuck. Whenever I put my Rocky Boots on, I just end up hanging out in them.
Did you get counseled a lot for your uniform? Were you that kind of Marine?
No.
Where you come in and people are like, why the fuck are you fucked up, Devil Dog?
I joke around like I was super, but I was like only medium fucked up. That was pretty good.
You were the standard amount of fucked up.
So like a 4-4 Marine? You're like a 4-4 Marine?
Yeah. I was never a turd or anything. And my uniform was always locked on. It's good.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that journey for you.
Thank you.
All right, let's do a little save rounds and alibis cons. We'll start with you.
Cool. Got some entertainment to partake in. I've started the Band of Brothers podcast. I only listened to one episode. There's 2 out as you're listening to this now. So far, so good. The host is British. So anytime you listen to a British podcast, you're already smarter.
No, it's me. No, it's me.
Exactly what he sounds like. And then on FX, the American Crime Story is impeachment. It's the Monica Lewinsky thing. What's interesting about that for me is because I was, 5th, 6th grade when that was all going down. So I knew it was all going down and kind of had the broad strokes of everything, but didn't fully grasp what was going on. So to see that now played back, it's interesting. And funny thing that happened at my reunion this past weekend, I would have told you guys on Tuesday or Monday, whenever that was. But anyway, I was talking to this guy and I didn't know everybody who I went to school with, like in class, whatever. It was this guy who's I didn't really know very well. And we're talking and he says to me, he looks me dead in the eye. He's very serious. He goes, Connor, I got to tell you something. When we were in school, I thought you were an asshole. You were on the football team and you weren't really around. I just thought you were an asshole. I was like, oh, all right. He goes, turns out you're a really nice guy. I was like, all right, thanks.
I thought he was going to say, turns out I was right.
Yeah. Glad I could turn you there, pal. So that's that. All right. Beat UConn. That's all I got.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Catherine.
Gosh, this is like when I was a kid and you would ask me in November what I wanted for Christmas. And I'd be like, fuck. And then afterwards I'd be like, I have 20 things. So no, I guess I have no saved round.
You know what you should do? Cause this is what I do.
What?
Do as I say. I have a note. That's just a running note that I have. It's titled saved. And anytime something comes up throughout the week, I put a little note in there. And then sometimes during the episode, I'll put a note in there because it's something that I want to bring up based on a story. And then that way you'll know what your saved rounds are.
Well, you know what? I'll say this. I got a submission this morning. It's very rare to get submissions for Zero Block 30 because a lot of people are worried about getting in trouble.
Yes.
But if you just have some lighthearted, fun thing, or you're a veteran and you have an old video now that you feel comfortable sharing that I don't know, send me stuff to put on Zero Block 30. I posted it. The guy sent me something that was funny. I posted it and I gave him credit for it, of course. So send me your shit.
You got to say to us, credit me or don't, because our default is don't, because I didn't do it the other day. I posted this video of the choppers going over the World Trade Center on 9/11 for the new World Trade Center. And the dude was like, please take my name off of it. I don't want people to know that it came from me. And I was like, shit. Like you try to do the right thing, but you got to let us know. Post it or give me credit or don't.
Yeah, but send us stuff to post. And it goes for 2. If we also for ZBT, like a little spill in the tea, we can make you anonymous if there's some kind of crazy shit going on in your unit that you want us to talk about, have a little bit of a scuttlebutt segment. If you have horrible mold in your barracks, send us photos. We'll keep it anonymous, but we'll kind of call it out. Basically like news 3, is there something going on in your neighborhood that blah, 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 like hit us up with that stuff. I'm interested to know.
Even if you have same thing Kate was talking about earlier, you got baby mama drama going on at work, or if your command's being dickheads and they're not letting you be a normal human being, let us know. We'll air that stuff out too. I love doing that.
But with discretion, and we can change the name of the base. The name of the people in the cities have been changed to protect whatever. But send me shit. That's all I'm saying.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I don't really have anything either. I am excited that am going to be here for another 4 years. I think that's great.
Yeah.
It is interesting to think about where ZBT will be at, and 4 years from now at like 900 episodes or something like that. My children will be able to know basically everything that I did from the time that I was like 32 to fucking like 45 years old. Like they're gonna know everything, like every single thing that I have done in my life. Essentially, I've talked about on these shows. So it'll be a strange little time capsule for them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
All right, we'll see you guys back here on Tuesday. Sound the Retreat.